vacation, and then you come back and you go, you know, there were some things I really had problems with. I didn't think that allowing you to use as much water as you wanted to and running the air conditioner with doors open is sustainable, is green. What would you do? What could you do?
You could write to the company and tell them their concerns.
Sure, you could write to them, you could post. Remember we talked about word of mouth and using the internet for word of mouth? You could post a review. You know, you do that on Yelp allows you to do that, right? You go in and you post reviews. You can post reviews on all these different sites to say, you know what, this was an issue. You guys need to do something about that. And from a marketing perspective, if they truly are green, what should they do?
Change.
They should change. They should do something about it. And that is another signal, okay, that a company is actually learning and improving, because we all make mistakes, and as long as we learn from it, and that's what you need to do in marketing too. And then we have disposal behaviors. Many times, like I said before, and this doesn't apply to, I don't think it applies to this sort of, well, I wonder, you know when you buy airline ticket and you fly somewhere because your only choice is to fly, you're increasing your carbon footprint. One of the things you can do now is you can buy carbon offsets. So the question is, with disposal behaviors, would that be an example of buying a carbon offset?
How do you define it?
I feel like
Pardon?
if it doesn't have anything to do with carbon, then it's not, like if it's just disposal of trash, I don't know if it qualifies.
Yeah, that's why I'm not sure. One of the things that you could think about in terms of disposal behavior here on campuses, we're starting, the campus is getting involved. Our campus is very green, by the way. We're a very green campus, and I know you guys took a tour of the campus. You know that we started a bottle bill at Long Beach before the bottle bill was even talked about or made law or anything in our state or any other state through the consumer, Ralph Nader's group. Yep, superb.
Public interest?
We did that before any of this started. So we have really been a green campus. One of the things we're now doing, and this would get to disposal behavior, is what do you do with your food waste? And that's part of what's going on now in the university, is trying to figure out how do we deal with food waste? Okay? How do we bring food waste to the point where we can actually recycle it and reduce our carbon footprint? And so maybe that's one way to think about disposal behaviors, although it doesn't specifically tie into ecotourism. So I just took you through this process, okay? I have lots of examples on the next few slides, the next 3 or 4 slides, that you can, since I'll put those slides up on Beachboard, you can actually click, because there's links in there and examples and stuff, so you can actually go through it and all. We don't have enough time to go through all of that, but so basically you'll see all of these have hot links, and you can go in and look at them. The last thing I want to talk about is the way we learn about things. We don't learn about things overnight. And being sustainable, green products are something that is relatively new. When I say relatively new, it's something that we've started to talk about in marketing and consumer behavior, and sort of going mainstream in the last probably 15 years. Okay? It's been around a lot longer, but I'm just talking about going mainstream. So one of the things we look at in marketing and in consumer psychology is this idea of people go through a process to learn something. Okay? You become aware about something, you get some information, you determine whether you like it or not. You determine a preference for it, if you like it and you really prefer to buy organic versus non-organic. Then you become conviction. You have a conviction, which basically means I will no longer buy any food products that are not locally grown. Okay? Now, is that an easy thing to do? It's difficult. It's difficult because in some ways you can say, okay, with produce I can do that. It restricts your produce that you eat. Okay? You can no longer buy kiwis in the middle of the winter. Okay, or grapes in the winter, tomatoes, although tomatoes are a little easier here in Southern California. We're really fortunate in California, Southern California, okay, because of our weather. But in many places, you'd be eating carrots and potatoes, parsnips, and what else? If you lived in the northern part of the United States, okay? So it'd be a lot more difficult, okay? But then you start thinking about what you eat in terms of fish or meats. That gets a little more difficult, okay? So this kind of conviction towards eating local can be difficult if you restrict it too much. So these kinds of things, you need to decide, where are you at here in all of this? So some of the things that I have here in this thing, you can look through it a little more closely, but basically I try to show, if you don't have a barrier to buying something green, if you don't know about eco-friendly products, then how do you, as a marketer, what would we do to improve that or change that? We try to find ways to educate consumers, and then I give examples, like using Energy Star labels. You know, things like that. Labeling is a common way to teach people about it. If you have negative perceptions of green products, and I know most of you would probably say, why would I have a negative perception of a green product? Green is supposed to be good, right? But the early green products that came out, some of them were expensive and didn't work very well. Early on, a lot of the green cleaning products were actually pretty bad. They were more expensive, and they didn't do a good job cleaning. Now this has changed. So what happened is, when you sit there and you say, I want to be able to buy green products, and you went and bought a green product and used it and it didn't do its job, you weren't as likely to continue using it. So when you guys go through and look at the slides, you can see this is the reason I have this, is so you can see how people learn about products in terms of barriers, and then how, from a marketing perspective, we can improve that. We can provide a solution for consumers. So the last thing is, I talked a little bit about segmentation, which is basically looking at consumers as groups of people who are similar along certain dimensions. And in marketing, what we tend to do is we tend to look at things from the perspective of what we call the low-cost consumer, and that's a new segmentation. But what I want to show you, and this goes back to what I was talking about earlier, is one way to segment is along what we call this idea of benefits. So we can talk about utilitarian or functional, symbolic, self-expressive, hedonic, or experiential. And here I give you an example and take you through looking at that from different perspectives. People who buy a gas-efficient car because it costs less, because it's environmental, or because, well, I have here, they like playing video games to maximize their MPG, or it's like a video game for them. And these are actually a study that Toyota did. They came up with these different segments. So they divide these groups, these people, into different segments, and they appeal to them in a different way. So for people who are interested in the MPG, that's more of a utilitarian. You guys have taken a class in philosophy? No? Well, you will. In philosophy, we talk about utilitarian. And it's basically here what we're talking about is this idea of doing something because it's efficient. Okay? So, if you're interested in this kind of segmentation strategy, this is a hot link and you can go there and click on it. Okay? Last thing, positioning. Examples of how a company does this. Office Depot is one of the top 10 green companies in the world. I don't know if you guys know that. They have a whole catalog of supplies that are all green. Okay? So Office Depot is one of the best in the world in terms, like I said, the top 10 in the world. And I have a link in there if you go through and look at the slides where you can actually go to see who the top 10 companies are. I was surprised. Staples and Office Depot.
We're buying only from there by the university,
Right.
only buying through there.
To show you that CSUOB really is, and we've signed on to the whole sustainability act, and I think there's like 600 universities that have signed on to it. Toyota and Honda have hybrid cars. Why do people buy? The Tesla and the Nissan Leaf, you guys have seen those? Electric cars. Okay? And then this is another link you might be interested in. One of the issues that California has through AQMD, what is it? AQMD, Air Quality Management District, is the toxic fumes that come from paint. Paint is very toxic. So now there's a company called Mythic Paints that makes non-toxic paints. So they fit within the standards of AQMD.